Hello, beautiful soul. I'm Vicki Howie of ChakraBoosters.com, the creator of Chakra Boosters Healing Tattoos.
And I'm Keisha Beelan, Vicki's assistant, and welcome to this episode of
Chakra Talk! Woo! Are we actually going to do shadow today? The little birdie told me that.
Birdies. We are doing
I'm so
shadow
excited.
today.
You know how much I love shadow. Hey, you guys, if you haven't seen the playlist on the channel, we have the playlist for healing the chakras with shadow integration.
Yes.
And what's the other one?
5 shadow qualities of the chakras.
Yeah, so I think the playlist might be, but it's of each chakra. Like
Of
you can
each
go
chakra,
and just
yes.
watch the roots. So you're correct about the playlist, but they can also go watch them of each chakra, right?
Yes.
So if you only want to see the 5 shadow qualities of root, you can go look up that one on the channel. But for the playlist, we will give them the link below. Okay, so shadow. Let's dive in. Oh, and Keisha is going to be doing this with me now. You probably noticed she's doing them so that she can go look at the channel because it's starting to get overwhelming, you guys. There's
So much love.
There's so much love. There's so much information. I love it. But it is over 320 videos now, and I can't keep up. I can't answer all the time. It actually, more people benefit if we answer on Chakra Talk. You can also, though, write to Keisha.
CYSHIA at chakraboosters.com.
Yeah, so that's Keisha spelled CYSHIA. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. How she pronounces it that way, I have no idea. But it's CYSHIA at chakraboosters.com. So if you want to directly send questions to her, you can as well.
Absolutely. So for our first question, what is shadow, Vicki?
What is shadow? Shadow is simply the parts of ourselves that we have denied and resisted. That's it. And one of the big parts of shadow is that we accept that we are a slice of the divine, so we are everything. This is a big premise, especially in the type of shadow work I do. And these parts of us want to come back. They want to come home to us. So shadow work is the reintegration of all these parts.
The reeling in.
And why did we get rid of these parts? I just want to mention a little bit. It's because in our development, in our culture, it's
Social norms.
Right, exactly. We're raised as a girl, oh, you don't get bossy, you're not angry, you know, raised as a boy, buck up, don't be so emotional. So all of a sudden, a young boy's like, oh, I can't be in my sacral chakra. Young girls, I can't be in my solar plexus chakra. I can't be leadership oriented. The boy's like, I can't be emotional. So those are just real simple examples. But basically, it's not your fault. It's not our fault. It's just the way society works, the way our parents parented us. They did their best. But it caused us to shut down different doors, different rooms of ourselves. And shadow work is this really fun journey, juicy journey of re-owning
To bring
it all.
all your pieces back on home.
Yeah, back on home. That's perfect.
Awesome.
I love that.
So why do you like using them with the chakras?
Well, as you know, one of the main ways, what's one of the main ways we find shadow? That shadow shows up in our life.
In our triggers?
Yeah, in our triggers. Like, I don't like that person. That pisses me off. So what happens is the parts we don't like about ourselves, we don't like in others. So people come in to give us this gift. It is a gift of annoying us and making us see a part of us that we haven't owned. Because remember, you're everything. So if someone comes in and they're greedy in your world and you're like, I'm not greedy. I don't like those greedy people. I don't like those greedy people. It means that you just simply have to own that back. And I'll talk about, do you want me to talk about? No, we'll talk about this later because I have a feeling you're going to ask me. I know it. So basically, the thing with shadow is that it's hidden. Because, you know, the sun, the consciousness hits us on the front and the shadow is behind. So what I like about it is one of the things I thought was missing when I did shadow work in the past was I would celebrate when someone would trigger me. People thought I was so weird, Keisha. Because I got to the point like I'd get in a fight with my partner, you know, we'd be upset. And that just doesn't really happen in my life anymore. It doesn't. You know, it's fine if it does, but it just doesn't. But it did quite a bit back then. And it would be like, oh, what am I upset about? Oh, he's being X. Like I'd have an adjective. I was like, oh, that's my shadow. Like I became this deep diver for shadow qualities, and in doing that, every disagreement, every drama, every problem in my life became an opportunity. So I got geekily weird. Is geekily a word? I got geekily excited about these so-called dramatic or negative traumatic situations, and I think that's great. So you can take any situation where someone's triggering you, and it's actually a blessing, because in that triggering, you are seeing a part of you that you've disowned, that you can own back. And every time you own a part of you back, you get more power, more of your personal power, more of who you really are.
And you started doing this more relative with the chakras.
Exactly, because the chakras are a template. We know, for instance, and also here's what's even better. You can even go directly to the chakra you want, because guess what happens when you block a lot of parts of yourself in a particular chakra? The chakra. So if you take a test, and I'll leave a link for a good test online called eclecticenergies.com. When you take that test, it's the only good one I know of. I cannot tell you any others are accurate. They're mostly marketing ploys. But Eclectic Energies is not a marketing ploy. Nobody benefits from you taking the test.
You just get results.
You benefit. So we like giving you those kinds of free resources. So go take the test, and whatever your weakest chakra is, or your two weakest, I guarantee that's where you're going to have some shadow. So then you can go and do the shadow videos for those, the 5 shadow qualities, or tap the number 1 shadow quality on each one of those chakras. So chakra work tells us, first of all, if I have a weak chakra, I probably need to do shadow there. It also tells us that we can proactively tap on things and not ever be triggered. Like, I don't have to wait for someone to come in and be what I consider to be manipulative. I can tap on my own manipulative. And by the way, if you haven't done shadow and you're wondering why we're embracing all these negative qualities, I think you'll get more understanding of that as we go along. I'm not going to jump ahead to that yet.
So on to my next question, the gift of shadow. I love this topic, and you mentioned in a lot of your videos, so I'd like to dive deep a little bit more for our viewers and explain to them, what is the gift of shadow, and how does it help us heal?
I do. I love the gift, because I think it's one of the easiest ways for us to heal shadow. First of all, you need to know that most of the shadow qualities, if you haven't seen my series, you might not know this, but most shadow qualities are negative. And I hate using negative and positive, but let's face it, we can all agree on usually what a negative is. Greedy positive or negative, is liar positive and negative, is selfish positive or negative. You know, they're very clear. So, but our culture tells us don't be those negative things, whether it's religion telling that or our own family. We're told don't be this, don't be that. And the truth is, that energy of that negative quality is in a chakra. And if you throw out that whole baby out of the bathwater thing, if you throw it out, you don't have the power of the solar plexus, for instance, if you try to just get rid of all selfishness, all self-centeredness. Okay, so because of that, we need to go and find out, if we dial that down, dial something down, what is its gift? Because every one of these so-called negative qualities, if we bring them into consciousness, which means if also we dial it down, we can consciously use it, it has a gift to give us. So let's look at a couple of them, because I just named a couple. I named selfishness, which is a good one. It's a solar plexus one. If we take selfishness, and first of all, just for the fun of it, if we explode it and make it worse, it becomes like narcissism. Yeah, it becomes like just egomaniacal, something like that. Or
egotistical.
Yeah, but to a large, like a narcissist, that kind of thing. But if we bring it down, 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 selfishness brought down, 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 becomes take care of me, becomes self-care. And you guys, my tribe, you're so caring, your heart's so open, a lot of you are empathic. You need more self-care in most cases. So I want you to embrace selfish. So that's one example. Can you give me one? Let's do one from the throat. Liar. Perfect one for the throat, right? Okay, so liar in the throat is... let's dial it up. You get a pathological liar. You get someone who can't even stop lying, someone who might not even know they're lying anymore. They don't know truth from fiction anymore. And then if you dial it down, take that liar energy, that liar frequency, and dial it down. See what you get. Dial it down. Put it in a nice, healthy, conscious range, and all of a sudden you have someone who's good with fiction. You have someone who's a storyteller. I write screenplays, and so it's fun. You have someone who can tell a story, and you have someone who's playful, who can twist facts and have fun with it. And if you think about it, I've wondered about this, even like being a crook, because sometimes I find that I need to work with the shadow myself, because I'm like, oh, I'm way too righteous up here, you know. So I realize I'm rooting for the crooks. Sometimes they make us root for the crooks in a movie, the way they set it up many times. And it's because they're having so much fun.
Yeah.
They're doing it like in a way that you're like, I want to be part of the heist. So when you dial down liar, you get fiction, you get fun, you get storytelling. You get somebody who can really play in that realm of the fictional. And that's an important part of life. We humans love stories. So that's 2 examples. Think for yourself on the other ones, and also watch my other videos, and you can watch my videos on the shadow, and you can hear some other examples, because I often give the gift.
And comment below, ask more questions.
If you don't know what the gift is, you can't find it, and you have a quality, we have it covered, go ahead and ask about that one.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we'll answer them here in Chakra Talk.
Yeah.
So moving on to answering some of those questions, I'm going to bring in a few.
Okay.
Do a couple. The first one, I believe I'm saying this right.
Some of these names, you guys have some pretty wild names for your channels.
Sophia Oriental Dance would like to know, Vicki, what about violence? I sometimes tend to judge violence. Now that you mention it, is that also a shadow? What positives can we find in violence?
When it comes to the personal individual, and I think this person's asking more about violence like an individual, it's coming more usually from the solar plexus.
The aggressive.
Which is the fire, guys. So solar plexus is the outward aggressive energy, okay? And when it gets out of control, I mean, it's fire. Aries is fire. Aries is the god of war. You know, you can go on and on about the planets and how they support this. But you can also dial down violence. And you dial it all the way down, and it is a big part of that boundary making. Because boundaries are really root that recognizes the boundary. Solar plexus enforces it. It's the 2 lowest masculine chakras. Here's my boundary. Now I'm enforcing it. So violence, when dialed way down, is control of your boundaries. It can be non-violent, but it growls like, you know, it's got that energy of like, so it's very powerful. Violence dialed way down, ironically, guys, I'm sorry to have to say this, but it actually takes away violence. Have you ever seen that? Because somebody who's in their own power, who's really in their own power, like really, does not need to be violent. They look at you and they go, no. And you go, okay.
Can you guys feel that?
You go, okay. It's like a no. Here's the most important thing I can say, Sophia, is that you want to make sure, she's making a good distinction between, okay, we're doing shadow work with someone, or we're actually in danger being around someone. There are people, if you, for instance, I'm going to give you an example, guys. Let's say you grew up with a violent father. Maybe it was a violent mother. That happens as well sometimes. But let's say you had a violent father, and you decided it was so horrible to be on the receiving end of that violence and that aggression constantly coming at you that you decided you were going to be ultra loving. So basically you made the decision, I am not going to be a violent person. I am not going to be an aggressive person. Maybe I'm not even going to get angry. Because if I get angry, I might become aggressive. If I become aggressive, I might become violent. So I'm not doing any of that. So you began to shut down the home of those traits, which is your solar plexus chakra. And as you did, believe it or not, what happens is we are like magnets. Every chakra, there's a relationship with every person we meet, with every situation, with every group that we meet, and certainly in dyads, in every individual relationship with 2 people. And what happens is if you are literally stepping away from your solar plexus, it's like when you push someone and then they push back, right? You're leading away, they're going to come toward you.
Energy has to balance.
It has to be. It looks for that yin yang in the dual world, in the 3D reality. And a lot of us say, well, that just means I'm looking for my parents. Well, this explains why a lot of that happens. Is because what often happens is we have a problem with our parents that we don't like. We reject that aspect of ourselves, and then it comes back to us again with a new person who's bringing it back to us. But the problem is when someone's bringing back violence, whether they're bringing back violence physically, they're bringing it back emotionally, perhaps they're bringing back not just violence, but there can be other things that happen too. Like, can you think of one, like something where it's in your space? Oh, I know. Like, often this happens in couples. I see this a lot in couples where one person's hyper responsible and the other person's irresponsible, because the hyper responsible person has gotten rid of their irresponsible self, and they draw in the irresponsible partner, and that partner begins to rack up financial debt for them, for the marriage. And the responsible person is just trying to go at it by dealing with the partner, but they really need to deal with their own shadow. But the problem is, when you're in alert like that, when a person's physically hurting you or financially harming you, causing your safety to feel out of whack.
The insecurity.
Yeah, you can't do this subtle, you can't do shadow work and go, well, I'm going to own that bag as mine. No, you're at that point going like this. So the first point of healing is to always put yourself in safety, out of harm's way, in a boundaried way by the person that you believe is abusing you. Always, no matter what. If someone is abusing you right now, it doesn't matter if your shadow dynamic is involved. And I will tell you, Farrah Fawcett did the movie about the burning bed or whatever, and it was a very famous, like, Lifetime movie or something, and she ended up killing her aggressor, who I believe was her husband. But what they didn't follow was the woman whose true story she told never did any work on herself. She was killing her husband, the problem she thought was outside her. And
she thought she solved it.
Yeah, and she got remarried to the exact same kind of guy and created abuse again, alcoholism again. So yes, I am saying, popular or not, I am saying that there can be a non-solar plexus victim energy that literally draws violence, but that does not mean that you work with that person on that. And it does not mean you're safe to work on yourself in that environment. So I'm saying it again. First, boundaries. So if you're being threatened financially, emotionally, physically, or any other way, remove yourself from that situation. Once you are removed from that situation, realize then you need to do some work on yourself so you don't draw similar types of situation. Now, this is not blame, so please don't go off on blame, because I don't even live in the world of blame. I live in the world of how energy works and how we can keep taking care of ourselves and keep loving ourselves more. And all I know is from my past and doing shadow work, old patterns have finally been broken. Okay, so let's not get off of that and get into, well, is it my fault if this is happening? If you're focused on that, you're not ready for this warrior work. You're just not ready for it. And that's okay too. That's totally okay. Recognize where you're at and be okay with it. But the point that both Keisha and I sure want to drive home is that always safety first, always boundaries first. Then when you're in a safe place, now
you're in a safe space.
Yeah, you're in a safe space. You're in your own space. Now look and say, am I someone who says I cannot be aggressive? Like, look at the partner, whatever they did, can I own that part of me? Because the main tenet in shadow, and if you can't own this one, you just can't do shadow work. You can't. You have to own this one, you guys. You'll be trying to take shortcuts every which way. And the mind's a tricky thing when you let it do that. The one tenet you must believe to truly do shadow work, I've really seen no exception on this, is that we are all everything. So if you can look at someone and say, they are that, but I am not, and you believe you are not, then you can't do shadow work. But if you know that every time you say you are not something, you are actually disowning a divine part of you because you're everything, then you can own back the positive qualities, like that aggressive part. Once you own it,
there's a gift.
You're going to own back your power. And then you say, but what if I own back aggression or violence? I'm going to be violent. No, in fact, you're not, and here's why. The shadow actually acts out from the unconscious. So when we saw this guy who went into the club, I think in Florida or whatever, and he shot down, it was in a gay club, a whole bunch of people, later became clear that he had these issues around his own feminine side and potential his homosexuality, and he was literally like killing that part of himself. Yeah. So what's dangerous is when it's in shadow. What's dangerous is when it's living, festering in our unconscious. When we own anything, it's like when you hear someone admit, they say, oh, I'm ashamed of that, or I'm embarrassed, and you hear them, you relax. Because our culture doesn't do that enough. Does that make sense? You go, I trust that person more now. Yes. I trust them more, not less, because they're acknowledging. So when we consciously acknowledge, that's healing. When we shove it under, think of shadow like a beach ball. What happens when you shove the beach ball under the water?
And come right back up.
It pops up. You got to use, and you use a lot of energy trying to keep it under the water. So we're just going to diffuse it under the water. Yeah.
Great analogy. Okay. So I have a question here from Symbol System. What I can't agree on is that everything that triggers us is a reflection of ourselves. For example, if I feel triggered that a lot of people don't care about the environment, doesn't mean that I also don't care about the environment. How I react to these people says something about myself, but that I react on it doesn't say anything about me except that I love the environment, of course.
So that's kind of confusing, and that's really full. What I'm sure, Keisha, I could tell by your face, what we both notice right away, Symbol System, is that there's a not wanting to be that. It doesn't matter how zealous you are. The real trigger for shadow coaches is as soon as we hear somebody say, I'm not that. When you're trying to back away from being something. And I'll give you an example because it's very similar. My teacher of this, who's written so many books, she's passed away now, Debbie Ford, was a real pioneer in shadow work, and she remembers the first time that she realized that she had shadow around being a racist, that it just shocked the heck out of her because her dad was a judge, they were a liberal family, they really prided themselves on being, fair and just being really fair and open-minded and not being racist and not being prejudiced in any way. And when someone called her on that and she realized that she wanted to say, no, I'm not. And then she went, oh my goodness, of course I am. So first clue is if you say you're not something or you want to say you're not, or you even think, I don't want to be somebody who's not good to the environment, there is a side of you that you had to put aside in order to be so caring about the environment. Or perhaps say, and I'm not saying this is the case, I'm just saying this could be the kind of element. Let's say you had someone in your family, maybe your parents, you had some early exposure to either parents who were like, we must take care of the environment, or people that were totally unconscious and you went, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, they don't care. So we tend to either go with what we learn or against what we learn, or even we could learn it somewhere else. It might be our soul's purpose, but whatever it is, when we're that strong about something, a purpose, and that's fifth chakra, when we're that strong, we literally begin to make wrong the other side of it. We make wrong. And the problem is that the other side always exists within us.
Right.
And it's in the accepting that side that actually gives you the ability to not be triggered by those people. What do you think is more effective in affecting those people? Being triggered by them and making them wrong, or not seeing them as wrong and just saying, I've been there, but let me tell you my experience. Like, which one's more effective? Like, people that have causes, I'm trying to say that it's real important we do our shadow, because if we don't do our shadow, like some people that are so anti-peace, they're such zealots about it that they literally want to fight the other person about it. I'm sorry, did I say anti-peace? I meant anti-war. Did I say that?
Yeah, you said anti-peace.
Yeah, geez. They're anti-war.
I was on the same wavelength.
Yeah, you were there because you knew what I was talking about. So somebody who says that they're anti-war, but it's funny I would say that because in shadow, because that's actually what they are. They become anti-peace because they're so anti-war that they're no longer standing for peace. They're no longer being peace. They're actually being warlike in being anti-war. And so I think it was Mother Teresa that once said, I'm sorry, but invite me to an anti-war rally and I'm not coming. But if you want me to come celebrate or stand for peace, I will. Right? Standing for peace, so you stand for rather than be against something. All shadow is, I don't want to be that. And you're against something. You're against something in yourself, you're against something in others. Yeah.
So
did that make sense? There's so much, you guys. Asking simple questions on shadow is not simple. It's not a simple topic. That's why we love it. It's so juicy.
That's why I love these next two.
So basically, Symbol System, watch. First of all, trigger, period. There's your answer. If you're triggered, meaning you have this visceral reaction. Second of all, look at your own languaging and stuff and see, are you able, if there's anything you can't say, you are. And then you logically you are going to be able to say, I have never done anything bad to the environment. Maybe you can say that, but we're not talking about the logic of your life. We're talking about the wholeness of your field. There's a part of you that you had to put aside, and guess what part that is? That's the part that might be irresponsible now and then about the environment, and it's actually the loving of that side that will let you be more balanced in your loving of the environment.
Absolutely.
That's my answer. I'm
Wonderful
sticking with that
answer.
one.
It's a good one. So from Hecho Entre Encinas.
Okay.
if that's how it's said.
Yeah, it sounds good.
There's 2 parts. There's 2 questions here. The first one is, the people who bother me the most are the people who are envious. Are jealousy and envy one of my shadows? Is envy in the first chakra? I think my first and my third chakra are blocked, perhaps because those shadows are too masculine. My family told me they were not appropriate for a girl. What do you think?
Oh my goodness, I love everything about that question. I really do. And I don't think I can keep track of all of it. But first she started with bothered. Okay, bothered is another code word for trigger, right? And then second, she said, she acknowledged envious, jealous. To me, they're the same. I don't know. We won't separate them. It means you want something somebody else has. It could be a quality they have. It could be a physical thing they have. But when we are attachment, that's root chakra. So that is a yes to her question about whether, yes. Envy and jealousy are root chakra qualities. And she also hit it out of the park by unraveling this thing of, these are both masculine chakras. Because there is this aspect of solar plexus when you want to look at these particular ones are more root, but there are many qualities that are both root and solar plexus. They're kind of the lower masculine chakras. And she right away realized, I was told to be, more girl-like and everything, so my masculine was pushed away from me. So yeah, on all accounts. Hit it out of the park.
And second one reels right into the complete opposite.
But this is from a different video, because I think the first one's from the root video, right?
So the first question that she had asked is from the 5 shadows of
qualities.
root.
Okay, 5 shadow qualities of root
and
chakra.
then the second one is the 5 shadow qualities of heart.
Okay.
And she asks, I used to underestimate people who are sad, and now I can see it is one of my shadows. Can you talk more about how to overcome sadness? I did not want to be like my mother, who was dependent and always sad. But I think I look very much like her.
We're very much back to the mom thing again. And this is how it's through a shadow process that we perpetuate the family misery. So if you can break that, great. And I can't say it right, H-O, whatever, however you say your name. Beautiful work. And you're doing, by being so clear, you're doing work for the whole tribe. So I really, really appreciate that. I know that for myself, believe it or not, guys, you can actually do shadow on I am my mother, I am my father. Because remember, we're everything. So try that one on for size right now and see how that one feels. And if you were really lucky enough to have parents that you're super proud of, super loving toward, then you probably won't have much for you. But many of us had very dysfunctional situations, and saying we're our parents. But if you want to kind of do a umbrella piece of shadow work, like tapping or something around, like you could just tap through the emotions that are coming up of even though I am my mother, I deeply and completely, even though I'm just, you can start with just like my mother, even though I'm just like my mother, even though I'm just like my father, and you can tap away, and then eventually you can do even though I am my mother, even though I am my father, if you want to go even deeper, because we come right from their lineage of DNA, and you wouldn't believe the amount of compassion you get for your parents once you do this natural compassion that comes out. So she used the word underestimate, which is really interesting, because with the feminine, with the masculine qualities, we tend to just like, I'm not that, that's bad, that's, envious, anger, materialism, greed, like all these masculine chakras, because they deal with the external world. We're like that with them. But sometimes with the feminine ones, we're kind of like, well, I underestimate that person, like I don't know how much power they have or something. We keep it real soft. But other men can really get frightened of the feminine, because men are often taught, don't be emotional in that, and so they'll be like, I am not emotional, I am not going to cry, I am not whatever. So yeah, that's perfect how you're beginning to see. And sadness dialed way down. Let's just feel into a second the gift of sadness. Sadness has an empathy to it. It has an empathy for self. It's an empathy for others. It allows us, it's not like we have to go around like Eeyore or something in order to have a relationship with others. But when someone gets it, when you're sad, there's such a feeling of feminine connection, because it brings you into the feminine dynamic of I can be happy, I can be sad, I can be wherever my emotions need to be. Sadness also, I think, has a certain amount of, it's a part of being human, and it has a certain authenticity to it. It brings us into our heart, because often sadness comes from tiny little versions of grief. Yeah? Like little, like that situation didn't quite turn out the way I wish it could have, and so I'm grieving my vision of it being different.
Right.
That relationship didn't turn. Sadness is a mini grief, and grief opens our heart. Grief doesn't open our heart when we judge our grief, when we push it off, when we say, but when we use
Allow
grief, in a sacred way, it just like
so healing.
But you can feel like it opens a space. You can notice my voice changed when I started to talk about grief, and you and I fell. Like, did you see how Keisha and I, we fell? I might get chills in my legs now. We fell into a sacred space. Grief is one of the most sacred emotions. Sadness is a degree of day-to-day degree of grief that we experience.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks for that question. Uno más. One more.
Another win, all the Mexican names, Hispanic names.
From Ewa Bertka, that's how we're going to pronounce that. When is it? I'm assuming this is what you meant. When is it a good time to accept and understand the shadow of someone else and move on?
Okay.
And when should I react because the shadow qualities of someone are actually doing me harm?
Oh, okay. So I actually answered that question with the other one, and it's more appropriate to this question, which is the boundary part. Yeah. So everything I said about the boundaries earlier, the first thing you're going to do, if it endangers you in any way, Iwa, you're going to set boundaries and remove yourself from the situation. Absolutely. But just remember, anytime you react in a triggered way, an emotional way, it has something for you. But by no means are you going to stay in that situation. There is no advantage. It's actually a disadvantage. The person in your external environment that makes you aware of a shadow quality is a gift. And that's really cool, because you can get to the point where people you would be upset about, you can go, oh, I'm so grateful they gave me that gift. But they themselves, the actual person, especially if they're not taking any responsibility for whatever they're doing, they are not necessarily positive for you.
Right.
They're the messenger. Take the message and then go do the work. Go do the work. And the doing the work is the key part, because we always have to re-own that part of us. We have to go claim that part of us. If we don't go claim that part of ourselves, it's like the analogy of the kids, if you have your kids are missing, and which is the case with shadow, it's like our kids are missing, parts of us are missing, and then we find where they are. Someone gives us the information, so that's the messenger. They give us the information. Now we can consciously say, oh, okay, I now know I have shadow around, say this person is aggressive or the person's manipulative. I have shadow around manipulative. But if I don't do the work on that, I'm never going to own and take that child back. And the truth is, you need all of your children. All of your children, even the little one that's misbehaving. Yes, you need all your children. And you don't get your children back by having someone tell you where they are and then thinking about where they are.
They're just going to come home.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I know they're over there. No, you go and you get your children. Well, that's the shadow work. We go and we get the children. I'm just reiterating that because it's such an important point. Embodiment, do the work. Information alone, especially with shadow, won't do anything for you. Well, it'll do a little, but it sure won't do the integrating. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a first step.
Great first step.
Yeah.
That is all for the questions that we have.
Oh, wow. We made it through shadow. Thank you guys for, this. I want to say one more thing, Keisha, which is this is warrior work.
It is.
Shadow work is not for the faint of heart. It is not for the ones who don't believe that we're all and just want to be all logical. No, I've never done that in my life. So those who want to say, I am not, and actually want to believe you are not, the shadow work is just not for your spirit. Jung said, I'd rather be whole than good. If your desire in life is that you'd rather be good than whole, I have no problem with that desire, but you're not going to want to do chakra work. It's a beautiful desire.
Shadow work.
Oh, yeah, shadow work.
You can do chakra work.
Yes, do chakra work. You're not going to want to do chakra shadow work, and you're not going to want to do shadow work, period. So, and you know what, Keisha, it really is true. If you say I'd rather be, it is right. I think I made that mistake, even though we're talking about shadow, because remember, what do they call it? Freudian slips. because really it's true of chakras as well as shadow.
Because
if you'd rather be good than whole, you're not going to be able to do true chakra work. You could come and do all the work you want. I'm going to open my heart. But you're not going to do the balancing that needs to happen. To me, shadow work is chakra work, and chakra work is shadow work. And we make a differentiation on them so that we can physically play them out. But thematically, they both only work in a field of wholeness.
Great way to say that.
Right?
Yes.
And Jung was about wholeness, and he was also about the masculine and feminine, the anima and the animus. So, and that's so what I'm about with the tantric work and us weaving our own chakra energies so that we can live in the fullness of our masculine and our feminine, which ironically doesn't lead us into duality, it leads us into unity of ourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Great stuff, fun stuff. Thanks for asking such great questions to everyone out there who asked.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for going out and find everyone's great questions. And we'll see them on the next
Chakra Talk.
Chakra Talk. See you in a bit. Until then,
remember,
keep your mind open, your heart full, and your feet firmly on the ground. We love you.
Bye.
Bye for now.